Will you drink to the earth and to the days which have passed upon it? Will you drink to the fullness which was and to friends who have passed on? Will you drink to good company well met?
So what we were able to do is to go out to an online auction site and buy 2 machines. Less than $100 is the cost of entry into your exploitation and vulnerability research. So this is what the machines look like when we booted them up. They're fully assembled. So now what we'll start to do is dissect them and see what we can find out as far as exploitation vectors. So I've only had access to this for a few minutes. I mean, literally a few minutes. And I can already see the threat landscape of this machine.
We're loving this one, but most people probably wouldn't.
A room full of hackers, all trying to hack into voting machines.
You can possibly make it accept a fake card or accept any card, so you could add your own votes.
These are supposed to be the latest machines. They're still used in elections, and they're running ancient software. I think that, like, if somebody wanted to, it would be pretty easy to fake an election.
Less than a couple hours with access, and they're already figuring out ways to break in and play pranks. The experiment is the brainchild of Jake Braun. He's a former security advisor for the Obama administration.
You know, with everything that happened in 16, what we're trying to do is get this industry to mature from a cybersecurity perspective, so you don't have folks saying what they are now, which is things like machines are unhackable or databases are air-gapped and can't be changed.
It's not clear if any actual machines were infiltrated in the 2016 election, and no one has suggested any physical votes were changed. But intelligence officials agreed that Russia was able to meddle with other election-related systems. This inspired Braun and the organizers of this year's DEF CON hacking conference to collect over 30 pieces of voting-related equipment, including voting machines and a mock elections office, and tell a group of hackers to try any means necessary to break into and reverse engineer them. And it didn't take long. Several were compromised within the first hour and a half.
So if you're a voter in America, we're likely hacking a machine that you vote on. There's a few dozen of these machines and also electronic poll books. In some states, people check in on an electronic device as opposed to a paper book.
The vulnerabilities at the voting machine level are very localized, and what we're trying to simulate out here is the entire back-end network.
There's a lot of mischief these guys can do without ever actually having to physically get access to a machine. If they were just to go in and mess up the voter file, you could have millions of people showing up at the wrong precinct or showing up at the right precinct, but the name's wrong in the poll book, and then all of a sudden, now they don't know where they need to go.
Intelligence officials have stated that Russia was able to influence the election without the need to penetrate actual voting machines by breaching DNC computers, accessing staffer emails and opposition research. The Department of Homeland Security also found that they targeted election-related systems in as many as 21 states.
If you wanted to go in and specifically manipulate vote counts on every single machine in America, that'd be really hard to do.
Right.
But you don't need to do that to have an impact on the election in 18 either. You only have to flip a couple Senate seats to have an impact on U.S. Congress.
If it can be done, there's a chance it's already being done. Dominion Voting Systems did not respond to our request for comment. The plan is to eventually present the event's findings to Congress.
What the election industry needs to do is start working together with our national security agencies to share threat information, understand when the bad guys get in, and then get them out when they do. If we don't get our act together quickly, this could be one of the biggest threats to American democracy in our history.
Do you believe that right now we are in a position where the 2020 election will be hacked?
Oh, without question. I mean, the 2020 election will be hacked no matter what we do, even if we're as more successful than I even think we could be in securing our elections. The question is, will we be able to identify the attacks before they can have an impact on the election through things like audits of vote counts? And can we get the bad guys out before they can do something bad?
They called it backwards. It was simply backwards.
South Jersey voting machine incident makes waves.
It was 2011, and Cynthia Zirkle and her husband Ernie were running in a local election in their hometown of Fairton, New Jersey.
Was this a big deal here?
It was. It was both a big deal, but people said, we don't trust the system.
First story from ABC 27, voting machines in one Pennsylvania county flip votes for judges, an error to be fixed in tabulation. I love this. A quick correction for the beginning of the show. I said it was in one location. Actually, voting machines, plural, in a county were flipping votes. Check this out. They say voters were asked to decide whether Pennsylvania's Superior Court judges Jack Piniella and Victor Stabile should be retained for additional 10-year terms. The yes or no votes for each judge were being switched because of the error. Said Lamont Clure, the Northampton County executive, if a voter marked yes to retain Piniella and no, for example, for Stabile, it was reflected as no on Piniella and yes on Stabile, or however you pronounce that. Now, look, they're saying it's going to be fixed. The first question I have is, what if no one noticed? And more importantly, what if no one noticed any others? How are we supposed to? This is a huge problem, because right now, voter confidence is probably at an all-time low, considering 2020 and even 2022 midterms. And now with this, it's not even this. Check, we got a bunch of other stories. Here we go. Let me see if I have we're getting there. Nick Sorter says, one of the top 5 most liberal voting precincts in Kentucky has been cleared out due to a supposed gas leak. Kentuckians are currently at the polls voting to decide whether or not they want to oust their Democrat Governor Andy Beshear and replace him with Trump-backed Daniel Cameron. Highland Baptist Church in Louisville will now be having extended voting hours after being shut down. We have this one. 2 Jefferson County polls get extended voting time after brief shutdowns. So this is a related story. We're basically getting it's not confidence building. Now, I'll say it like this. I don't know if this matters in the big picture. These singular individual voting events. I think, let me clarify. I don't know if right now just this one thing matters. I think together, however, and the bigger picture matters is what I'm trying to say. If you're getting stories like this and people already don't trust the system, it is going to shock confidence in our elections, which means it doesn't matter who wins. If the Democrat wins, the Republicans are going to point to these. And if the Republican wins, the Democrat's going to point to these. Democrats will say things like Republicans were so salty about 2020, they started manipulating with machines. And Republicans are going to say Democrats are here doing the same thing they've been doing. I don't see, when you look at what's going on already, and it's not even the biggest election day. I mean, come on, the primary voting is going to be bonkers. I'm not even talking about, November 2024, the general. What's going to happen when people go to vote in the primaries and they're getting weird things happening? What happens when people go to vote in the primary in a blue state's like, oh, whoopsie, you didn't vote for Trump, you voted for DeSantis or something like that?
What you should do is immediately release the software code of that machine. Because they're calling it an error. And was it an error, or was it supposed to do what it did?
Yeah, it's really weird to me how people have this very black and white view of voter fraud. It's like either it's not happening at all, and if you say it's happening, then you're an election denier, blah, blah, blah. Or it's like the whole system is rigged and you might as well not vote. Like, of course voter fraud is happening. Of course there are people tampering machines. Of course there are people stuffing ballots. We know this. People have been charged for this in the past. And as we're seeing, if you look at polls over time of where people are at on the political spectrum, everyone is pushing further to the fringes. And as that happens, people are going to feel it is more of a life or death situation to try to rig elections. Of course they're going to feel that way. Oh yeah, if I change this machine, I'm literally saving trans lives, or I am literally saving the country from, whatever it might be. So I think we really need to be looking out for this. This doesn't mean don't vote at all. If anything, I think the media are the bigger election riggers than anyone in this. But yeah, there's a very real phenomenon happening more than we probably know.
This is why you need to make sure you go out and vote. There's 2 big things here. One, they want to demoralize you. For all you know, like for all the people who think there's a conspiracy to steal votes, maybe the real conspiracy is they want to convince you not to vote. Ooh. I don't believe they can rig as every single machine.
Yeah.
Now, see this story? This is really demoralizing. You mean even if I do go out and vote, they might flip my vote? Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it, because when I say they, I'm talking about your political opponents, and I don't care who they are. It's establishment, neo-lib, neocon, all of them. All of the people playing dirty politics want to convince you not to vote so that they can win. It's like that episode of South Park where they're voting for the giant douche and the turd sandwich. And then I can't remember what happened. I think like Kyle goes to Stan and he's like, you got to vote. And he's like, okay, I'll vote, I guess. And he's like, awesome. Wait, who are you voting for? He's like, I'm voting for the other guy. No, wait, don't vote. They want to convince you to vote, but if they find out you're going to vote for their opponent, they don't want you to vote.
I think if these machines are flipping votes intentionally, the more people that vote, the more likely it's going to get found out that they're flipping votes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You should definitely vote. And pay close attention.
And be volunteering. Like, be involved in your local elections. Be involved in your local community. Half the people that are volunteering are going to be these activist types that are on welfare, that don't have jobs, that have all the time in the world. You go be involved in that. We should be at our local elections. We should be, you know, the volunteers there, because that's going to be how you're going to spot this stuff.
The next year is going to be wild. I don't even know where to begin with it.